What's up, guys? How are you? Welcome into the Monday morning edition of the Daily Juice Podcast. My name is Matt Perrault. I'm your host every morning here of this 15-minute picks podcast, always being found on BettingPros.com, on YouTube, and wherever you get your audios. We're always being sponsored by BetMGM, and you guys are going to get two future college football bets from me coming up today. More on that here in just 1 second, but if you like either one of them, you can take that $20 offer to win $100 on any event, and you can win $100 automatically, win or lose. If the bet cashes, that's great. If it doesn't, you win anyway with $100 in free wagers from BetMGM. You using that promo code JUICE100 when you sign up for a new account at BetMGM and BetMGM.com. And on the BetMGM app, that promo code again is JUICE100. That's how we get our credit, if you will, for you guys listening to the Daily Juice Podcast. All right, so here's where we are. These are the days where I would normally not be betting. All right, so we had a bad day on Saturday. We had a bad day on Sunday. Sunday was a short day, but I went 5-0 over my bets on Saturday, and I've lost my last 7 bets here. Okay, so we're 5-7 over the last 2 days. Now the parlay hit, so if you had bet the parlay, that would make you up over the last 3 days. You'd be having a winning run, but for me, I'm pretty much flat. Had a couple of decent personal plays here and there, but NASCAR did not go the way we wanted to. Christopher Bell came in 7th place. We bet him top 5. He got a really bad break. Larson drilled him and knocked him off and really ruined his entire day. He had a top 5 car. He had a top 2 car, really. But unfortunately, that's just racing, and he just got a bad break, and that's the way things were going this weekend. Just a couple of bad plays, unfortunately. So Christopher Bell comes in 7th place. And then the Mets got shut out 3-0 by the Phillies, and Wheeler pitched really well. We had faded him. We thought the Mets at plus 145, 150 was good value. But both those plays did not cash yesterday. So 0-2, down 1 unit after the day before where we were 0-5, down 2 units. So not the way we wanted to go into a Monday here, but like I was talking about yesterday, these are the tough days, okay? I don't love betting baseball. Some people get off on it and they love it and they grind and they find it really fun. I don't. And so I made these bets a couple of days ago, and I was holding on to them to give them out on the podcast because I just wanted to wait and see for a day like today on a Monday where there's not much going on. We're getting ready for preseason football coming up later on this week on Thursday, so we've got football to bet on, which is awesome. And so once we get that, then we can get away from baseball. But really, we're down to these are the next couple of weeks where we just got to grind it and get to the end of the month. Once we get to the end of the month, we've got college football, we've got MACtion. I mean, have you looked at the schedule? Like, really? So I started doing my grinding over this weekend. I started really looking hard at the opening weekend, started looking at the number of games. I mean, we're going to bet football like every day, almost. I mean, we're going to have Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll probably break on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. I mean, we're going to be betting football 6 days a week. Now, I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, some people, look, there are other podcasts out there that just do baseball. I get it. I bet everything, all right? That's what I think is kind of unique about this podcast is that I do try to bet. We had NASCAR. We had baseball yesterday. Saturday, we had UFC. I'll have boxing. I'll have hockey. I'll have baseball, football, basketball, tennis even. I mean, I'll bet anything. If I think it's there and there's value, I'll bet on anything. But the number one sport I like betting on is football. I really like betting football. I like watching football. I like betting football. I don't think I'm alone in that. I'm guessing most of you guys feel the same way. But, we're just going to try to get through this to get us to football when we can really sink our teeth into the season. So I've got 2 Big Ten futures to give you here. Now, I've talked a lot about this if you're new to the Daily Juice podcast, you probably haven't heard me talk about much of my history, okay? So just a quick refresher as to where I've worked in my career. I started off in Virginia as the voice of UVA women, went to Alabama where I covered Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee for 5 years, went to Omaha, Nebraska where I covered Creighton University basketball and Nebraska football for 5 years, went to Des Moines, covered Iowa and Iowa State for 2 years. I went back to Boston for 5, where I covered everything, a lot of NFL, a lot of NHL, a lot of NBA, some college even, some minor league stuff as well, before I moved to Houston, where I covered everything nationally for a year and a half before they moved us to Las Vegas in December of 2015. So we are coming up on our 6-year anniversary of moving out here to the desert, where we started Pushing the Odds and everything else got rolling. So Pushing the Odds wasn't the first radio show. I actually was sent out to host Game Night, which was a nighttime show. And then after 2 years of doing that, things were not going well. My wife gave me an ultimatum saying I either had to find a new job or I had to find a new wife. So I had to go to Houston and say, hey. So that's where we started Pushing the Odds 4 years ago. And here we are now with me doing the Daily Juice podcast for our second year. Okay. I only say that because I want to give you guys a little background as to when I make these Big Ten plays. And we've made 2 plays so far on futures, 6 NFL. I've made 2 college. We're on the over UNLV, 1.5 wins. By the way, they lost their AD yesterday to Missouri, Desiree Reed-Francois, which is wild because, for a variety of reasons, her going to the SEC is wild, but it puts UNLV kind of a tough spot. So you've got a new basketball coach, you've got a new football coach. They need like a Lon Kruger to be hired as the AD. They need a stabilizing figure to be the athletic director for UNLV. But so we're on over 1.5 wins for UNLV football, and we're on over 7.5 wins for Ole Miss. Those are my 2 favorite bets for college football for overs. I'm going to go the other way with 2 programs that I covered quite closely, Nebraska and Iowa. Okay, Iowa State is an enigma to me. I don't know what to do with them. Iowa State could be undefeated and in the football playoffs or 9-3. It's really, really possible. I've looked at it 15 different ways, and I'm going to bet Iowa State games individually. I'm not going to put a future on Iowa State because I just don't know. Frankly, I just don't know. Their fan base is so mad at Oklahoma for leaving that, there's a lot more that goes into that football game than just football. So, don't know what to do with that. But let's start with Iowa, okay? And let's start with Iowa football here with a projected win total of 8.5, okay? So you have 8.5 for the wins for the Hawkeyes. Last year, they go 6-2. We've got a 8.5 number with the under at -115. Iowa, 8.5 total wins. Juiced a little bit to the under, basically -105 to the over, -115 to the under. Their schedule, okay, let's talk about last year. They go 6-2 last year. Iowa was pretty darn good. They lost 2 tight games early, and then they ran off 6 consecutive victories, including beating Wisconsin in their last game of the year. They beat Illinois. They beat Nebraska. They won at Penn State. They won at Minnesota, and they beat Michigan State. Really impressive to see what they've been able to accomplish, and really impressive to see where they've gone. 6-2 last year for Kirk Ferentz, who now is the longest tenured college football coach in the country. He's also the highest paid employee of the state of Iowa. They open with Indiana. Indiana with Michael Penix and an offense that's going to have a quarterback coming off of 2 ACL injuries, but they've got some of the best wide receivers, maybe the best 3 wide receivers in the entire Big Ten. The strength of Iowa, however, is their secondary. They are bringing back a bunch of guys on that secondary, and there's a bunch of players that will be standout players in the back 7. The problem is that front 7 is it's not typical Iowa, okay? They graduated a bunch. And frankly, that means I think Indiana and others are going to be able to run the football. I love Indiana. I am really high on Indiana. I just can't bet Indiana futures yet because I could see them winning 9 or 10 games because of the quarterback situation in the knees. It's too sketchy. It's scary when you got a guy who's that injury prone playing quarterback for Indiana. But Indiana is going to be a really fun team out of the Big Ten to watch. Now, you've got a sophomore quarterback for Iowa coming back. You've got a bunch of young receivers. You've got a bunch of young running backs. Iowa is normally running back you, but they've graduated a lot. And frankly, I'm not sold on this offense. There's no big player coming back for this offense. There's no one that makes me go, oh my gosh. Now, you could say that's typical Iowa, right? Grind it out, run the football, offensive line, defensive line. Okay, I'll give you all that. Except the schedule is really not good for Iowa. 8.5 wins is the projected total, like I mentioned. They open up at home against Indiana. I have that as a loss. Then they're on the road at Iowa State. you better believe the Cyclones are going to look to hang one on Iowa. And I get it, man. The Hawkeyes have dominated this series. They've won the last 5. They're 3-1-1 against the spread over the last 5. Huge game early in college football. Both teams will be ranked. It'll be one of the hardest tickets ever to get to if you want to go to that game at Jack Trice Stadium. Loss. Cyclones. I think Iowa, like last year, they opened up 0-2. I think they opened up 0-2 again this season. They beat Kent State. They beat Colorado at home. They'll be 2-2. They go to Maryland. Okay? Maryland, not a very good team. They've won the last 2, both games happening in Iowa City. Iowa, I think defensively will be able to hold down Maryland, but that's a sneaky game. Okay? It's kind of a coin flip type of game. Maryland's going to be better than some people think. But let's just go ahead and give Iowa the win there, but that's going to be tough because I'm going to take Penn State and I'm going to give Penn State the win at Kinnick. Okay? That it very well could flip. Iowa could lose at Maryland and they could beat Penn State. But I'm going to take the win at Maryland and then a loss at home. I have them beating Purdue on homecoming, and then they're at Wisconsin and they're at Northwestern. I know Northwestern's not going to be great, okay? And I could easily see potentially a win there. But then you've got Minnesota coming in. That game is always incredibly hard. Great football game. Gophers are always look to play hard here. Iowa has really dominated over the last couple of years over Minnesota, including last year where they won 35-7. They whipped them. But I think there is a tight game. I'll give it to them, though. I'll give them a win there. I'll give them a win against Illinois and then a win against Nebraska. Here's the problem. If they lose to Indiana and they lose to Iowa State and they lose to Penn State and they lose to Wisconsin, the Northwestern game becomes everything. And I've got 8.5. Okay? I've got 8.5 sitting here. I think Iowa's going to win 7 games, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they win 8. But that's it. That's all that I see for them, is to win 8 games. You can tell me I'm wrong on these different games. You can say they beat Indiana. Fine. Maybe that's the game I'm wrong on. But maybe they lose at Northwestern. They can lose there. Absolutely they can lose there. Iowa on the road, 2 teams. It's like a 10-7 football game. Absolutely they can lose that game. Wisconsin on the road is really tough. Really, really tough. There's a bunch of coin flip games. And by the way, don't put it past Nebraska. More on them here in a second. But Nebraska could beat them. And then you're at 7 wins. Now you're 7-5. So, I've called Kirk Ferentz the king of 8-4 because that's what he goes all the time. 2016, 2017, 2018. 8-4, 8-4, 8-4. That's what he does. It's what Iowa fans accept. They have a bar, and they're comfortable at 8-4. This is the longest tenured coach in college football. The guy doesn't play for Big Ten titles ever, okay? He's lucky once in a while to win his division. But to Iowa fans, hey, keeps on putting those NFL players out there. Everyone tells him he's a great coach. He's a great. And look, I hear you. If you're an Iowa fan, you're going, oh my God, you're talking sacrilegious about our guy. Just saying, different fan bases. 23 years. Has he won championships? No. Does he contend? Not really. Does he go to a bowl game, though? You get your bowl vacation every year, though, Iowa fan. That's what matters, right? You get that bowl vacation. As long as you got that bowl vacation, schedule it in. Going to a bowl game in January. We're going to go to Arizona. You know where you're going, right? The king of the inside bowl. But I'm going under. Under 8.5 wins for Iowa. Minus 115, 1 full unit. Hawkeyes win 8 games, not 9. Under 8.5. Okay? So, for you Nebraska fans that are probably listening to this, and you're probably chuckling, and you're going, ha, 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 yeah, Matt, those Hawkeyes are going to stink. Well, hold on a second. Let's talk about your team for a second. And Scott Frost. Can you believe this is Scott Frost's 4th year at Nebraska? 4th year. He's in the middle of a monster rebuild. He's got a brand new athletic director in Trev Alberts now. So, what do you make of this team? Adrian Martinez comes back, junior quarterback who is an enigma. I mean, I don't know what you do with that guy. He looks great certain weeks. Other weeks, he can't hit the broadside of a barn. He throws more picks than anybody else. It is a tough team to break down. It's a tough team to understand, but Nebraska fans are frustrated. I mean, they're frustrated. They want to see more talent. They want to see more wins. They want to see this team have a big upgrade in talent, which they should. They've got some better talented players coming back now. They've got some guys, new offensive coordinator. Maybe this is where, you see Adrian Martinez turn the corner, but Nebraska has had 49 fumbles in the last 2 seasons, and a lot of that comes from Adrian Martinez dropping the football. You've had a ton of interceptions being thrown. Nebraska's win total is 6.5. Okay, 6.5. So the problem with Nebraska, even though I think they might be better on the field, my problem with them is there's always a game or two that they slip up and they lose that they shouldn't, and their schedule is extremely difficult. They open up at Illinois. All right, Nebraska's won 4 of the last 5 in this series. Nebraska should win this game. I'm going to give this game to Nebraska, okay? I'm going to say they beat Illinois, but these are games that you think like they should win. Went 3-5 last year. They should beat Illinois, but they lost 41-23 at home to Illinois last year. But I'll give it to them. I'll give you a win. They beat Fordham, and they'll beat Buffalo. But I made the joke on Twitter that Nebraska's going to lose to Buffalo, aren't they? Just because. I've seen this. I've seen in games where Nebraska they'll win 2 games, they'll be 2-0, everyone will be like, oh, the Huskers, and then Buffalo comes in with a new head coach and only 10 returning starters out of the MAC, and then Buffalo finds a way to beat Nebraska because they're psyched that they're playing in Lincoln, Nebraska. They're playing at Memorial Stadium. They're playing in a packed house. They're going to play hard, and I've seen Nebraska lose they've lost this game all the time. Not just the MAC schools, but just the schools they're supposed to win and supposed to beat, and then they fall on their face and they lose. But I'm going to give it to you. Let's go with a win for Nebraska here, okay? The Huskers win. They have a schedule now that is just horrific. They're going to get curb stomped by Oklahoma on the road. I think they're going to lose to Michigan State on the road, okay? And Michigan State's going to have a bounce-back season. They could win that game. But again, I think Michigan State on the road, Northwestern at home. I think Nebraska's going 1-1 in those games. They might beat Northwestern and lose to Michigan State, or they could beat Michigan State on the road and lose to Northwestern. They're going 1-1 in those games. Then you got Michigan at home. I think that's a loss. They're going at Minnesota. The Gophers are off a bye in that week. I'm taking Minnesota. Nebraska's got a bye week on the 23rd. They'll play Purdue at home. I think they win that game. Then Ohio State comes in. They're losing that game. They're at Wisconsin. I think they're losing that game. And then they're at home against Iowa on the day after Thanksgiving. I think they're losing that game. If you add up everything I just said, that's a 5-win season. It's 5 wins for Nebraska. Say I'm wrong, okay? Say I'm wrong about the Northwestern Michigan State, and they go 2-0 with Northwestern and Michigan State. Okay, that's 6 wins. The total is 6.5. We're going under at -120, under 6.5 wins for Nebraska here in 2021 with Scott Frost, who is a guy that I liked. I want him to do well. I hope he does well. I just think he's got a really hard schedule this year, and the team might take a step forward, but the scoreboard, the record might not really indicate it, simply just because what you're looking at here from a schedule perspective for Nebraska and for Iowa. Very difficult schedules for both those teams. Don't like their quarterbacks all that much. Don't like the returning players. Nebraska's got some guys who they think could turn on and really be great and do some big things. I'm just not really there with them yet. I've got a decent running back room now and a couple linebackers that they're high on. But, again, I want Scott Frost to do well. Nebraska's schedule is ranked by Phil Steele as the 10th most difficult schedule in the country. Okay, you don't want to have the 10th most difficult schedule in the country when you're trying to do a rebuild. That's not what you want, And Iowa, for that matter, Iowa has the 18th most difficult schedule in the country as well, in case you're curious. Okay, two top 20 schedules for teams that aren't that talented. Recipe for disaster. 2 plays for us here on the Monday's Daily Juice. 8.5 wins under Iowa, -115. 6.5 wins under Nebraska, -120. our two plays here for a Monday. If I add anything in baseball, I'll jump in on the Discord channel, bettingpros.com/chat to get in, or underneath me here on YouTube to come on in and click on it. But we'll do some baseball tomorrow, and we'll get ready for Thursday coming up as we've got NFL football on the table to be bet on coming up this week. My name is Matt Perrault. Follow me on Twitter @SportsTalkMatt. Each and every morning, it's the Daily Juice Podcast, brought to you by BetMGM, always on bettingpros.com.